Alright guys, today's video is going to be a little bit of a tough one, and I know that this topic is going to be kind of triggering and a bit of a hard listen for a lot of industry peers. So I want to preface by saying I completely acknowledge that. I'm sort of going into this trying to be like a little bit of a big sister, like a little bit of a big sister lecture. We're going to be discussing the golden handcuffs of the sex work industry, money, making silly decisions with your money. And yeah, I know that a lot of this will I guess be relevant or make sense for other industries. For example, I hear all the time the golden handcuffs of mining, that kind of thing. But because I'm a sex worker and this is a sex worker channel, we're talking about this from my viewpoint as a sex worker, and I guess the friends that I have met in the industry that are in a completely different financial position to myself, and the struggles that I've seen people have. Now, I am aware that this video is probably going to rub a lot of people the wrong way, and that's not my intention. I think that this video is important to put out there. Even if it helps one industry peer, then I will feel that it is worth any level of backlash that I get for making it. This is a topic of conversation that sparks a lot of like debate and rage from a lot of people in different financial positions within the industry, but I'm going to try to have the conversation as best I can. Please know that I'm not trying to be judgmental, I'm not trying to be snobby, I'm trying to snap some sense into some of my industry peers, because I'm just seeing silly decision after silly decision. So let's get into it. Let's try to explain what I mean by the golden handcuffs, what I'm talking about. Now, something that happens within this industry is because the money can come so fast. It doesn't always come fast, but it can come very fast, and sometimes it can come very easy and very rapidly. I feel that a lot of the industry workers don't necessarily understand the value of a dollar, in the same way that, for example, I did working, on minimum wage, okay? And a lot of workers step into this line of work freshly at 18 or very young, and they don't have a lot of life experiences, or maybe they didn't have family or friends around them that knew anything about finances, and so they are not particularly financially literate. And that's not me trying to be judgmental, it's not me trying to be a bitch, this is just the reality and what I see is prevalent in this industry. Because the money comes so fast, a lot of workers, therefore, quick money, quick to spend, like it just came in yesterday, yeah, I'm gonna go out and spend it. I don't know how many industry peers I have seen celebrating on close friends or even public Instagram stories that they made $7,000 in a week, but then the following week, or sometimes even the very next day, they are out spending $5,000 on a handbag, or booking a $5,000 Airbnb, or whatever the case is, just spending it as fast as it is coming in and never actually saving any of it. And it's a really hard thing to talk about, because I know that seems really judgmental, but I need somebody to wake up. I need someone to wake up about this. Now, being in this line of work, of course, a lot of workers maybe mentally can't handle the work. Maybe their coping mechanism for doing this line of work is overspending, over shopping. That is their source of dopamine, right? I worked a 7-hour booking yesterday, so I deserve to buy myself this. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's wrong. I think doing this line of work, you should be able to afford the luxuries that you want in life, but we also need to be smart about the money that we have and setting ourselves up for the future. I don't like the notion that, we're going to expire or we're going to age out of the industry. But as we see time and time again, it's not necessarily that there is no work. It just may be harder to market yourself as an older, more mature worker, or you may be at a point where physically your body can't handle the work anymore, or mentally you can't handle the work anymore, because we know that this job is difficult in a lot of ways. Therefore, you reach a point where you need to be able to get out of the industry. But let's say that you started this at 19 and you're now 32, and you're trying to get into another line of work, but you've got no experiences behind you, you haven't saved any of your money, you're living week to week. This is where we end up in a really dangerous situation financially. we need to be saving money. And this can be even harder because we are our own bosses and we do our own taxes, right? And actually there are a lot of workers who do not do their taxes at all, which is a whole nother thing, because if you get caught, you're gonna have all these tax bills that you owe, and then you're living week to week and owing hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes for previous years. That is a completely other topic. But let's just say you are a worker filing your taxes. You are legitimately doing your taxes. Are you contributing to your super? Are you? Because a lot of my industry peers don't. And keep in mind, there are tax discounts. I think it's 15% for your super contributions. Please let me know if that's incorrect. I think it's 15% is all that you're taxed at for that. So you're actually saving yourself quite a bit of money by doing that in the long term. You're getting that discount on the tax. But I want you to think about for a second, if you were still back working a normal civilian job. For example, for me, back when I was driving the forklifts, the companies that I worked for, as much as I wasn't taking home massive amounts of money every week like I do now, they were contributing to my super, and I didn't get to have a say in it. It was, automatically done, those contributions. But when I would leave a job, I would have this money in my super that goes towards my retirement, right? And that was an automatic thing. It was something that you couldn't get out of, at least here in Australia, with our jobs, working a corporate job or a forklift driver or whatever it is, working at Macca's. There are super contributions. So when it is your time to retire, that money is there. The issue is when we are managing our own money, when we are our own boss, when we are running our own business, if we are not contributing to our superannuation, there is going to come a time where we are so far behind that it is impossible to catch up to everyone else, okay? Because there are certain money amounts that you are meant to have in super to be on track for retirement by 65, 70, whatever it is you want to retire at, right? And for a lot of us doing this job, doing full service, we are aware that it would not be possible to continue escorting until we are 65, 70, okay? So we probably want to be planning for an early retirement or a career change at some point. And if we're career changing, maybe we want to go back to university. We need to have the money behind us to be able to fund that education. Whatever the case is, we need to have a plan for retirement. If you are your own boss and you're paying your taxes and you're not contributing to your super, you are going to retire at, say, 40 out of the industry and go back to a civilian job and have no super when you should be at, like about $400,000 should be in your superannuation at 40. It's something like that. I'm not a financial advisor, but if I remember right, that's the number that we're meant to be at, somewhere around there by 40. You are not going to be there because you weren't contributing, okay? So super is a massive thing, all right? Super is a big thing, but let's talk about outside of super. Saving money, setting ourselves up. A lot of the industry suffers from what I call like lifestyle inflation. So yeah, you make $10,000 a week, but you spend $9,000 a week on luxury rent, on fancy cars, on nice dinners, on designer items. Sure, you physically can't afford it. Maybe you're not going into debt for it, but you are not saving an appropriate amount of your income. You need to make sure that you are, because you are your own boss, you need to make sure you are financially literate, okay? I think they say in like most resources online, 50% should be for your needs. So things like your rent, food, stuff like that, necessities, 50%. I believe it's 30% is fun and 20% is invested. If you're not paying your taxes, and you're just living off wads of cash, which unfortunately quite a lot of people in the industry do, you are never going to be able to invest any of it. You're never going to be able to invest because the second it goes into your bank account, it is tracked by the ATO, okay? You're not going to be able to buy a house. You're not going to be able to buy shares. You're not going to be able to buy crypto if that's something you want to do. You're not going to be able to buy like anything of substance, anything that makes doing this job worth it, anything that sets you up for life. You're not going to be able to do it. You're going to continue in this cycle of living this luxurious life of buying these designer items, spending all your money on Louis Vuitton and Chanel, which I'm not dissing. We know that I have designer items and I do choose to buy designer items as a treat for myself. But I do not spend every dollar that I make back on those things. It is important to understand what is an appropriate level of spending and be considerate of your future self and, your net worth down the track. You don't want to be doing this job to have nothing to your name when you leave it. And I know that these things are easier said than done. There are people in our industry that are genuine survival, and the thought of saving $10 is impossible to them. I really do get it. I have friends in the industry that are in that sort of position, and this video isn't aimed at you. I do think that it's still important to consider for when you're not in that position, but this isn't a dig at someone who genuinely can't afford to save. This is, you know, my industry peers making more than I ever did in a civilian job who still whinge and moan that they have no money. There are people in this industry, and I hate to shit talk, but it's part of this conversation, okay? There are people in this industry that I was friends with, I'm actually no longer friends with them, that will whinge and moan that they are broke, the cost of living, everything's so expensive. But then to find out that they make $4,000 a week, $6,000 a week, right? And I'm just there like, wait, and you don't have anything to your name, and you're complaining about the prices of the cost of living, but you make even $4,000 a week, right? And I'm just there like, you realize that the average Australian makes nowhere near that. You know, I was working a civilian job until I was, 24, I think, 23 or 24 when I started, you know, dancing. And back then, there were weeks when, you know, I would make like $900 for an entire week's work, right? Working 40, 50 hours a week, because I was like on a completely different level of income than what I make now. And I'm aware of those things. I know the value of a dollar. I absolutely know the value of a dollar. I know how much I used to have to work to make $20, whereas now $20 is nothing to me. But I'm aware of that. For a lot of people in this industry that have been doing this job since pretty much like their whole life, their whole adult life, to them $4,000 is nothing. It's survival. It's not survival. That is not you living paycheck to paycheck and making dumb decisions with your money in booking to booking is not survival. $4,000 a week is not survival. You are in a position that other people would kill for. But because those around you are making $10,000, $20,000 a week, whatever the case is, right? Or at least are pretending to. We all know there's a lot of people in the industry lying about how much money they make. That's a different fucking video. But, you know, you're being like, well, I'm survival because I make 4,000 and she makes 10,000. No, you can make less money than your friend. You can make less money than me. You can make less money than me and make smarter decisions with your money and overtake me in the long term. You can. If you are financially literate and you make smart decisions, you can fucking do it. I promise you. Please don't live week to week doing this job. You need to sacrifice, okay? You may not be able to pay $2,000 a week in rent. You may not get that luxury apartment, okay? You may have to stay in a little one bedroom for a couple years to save up enough to buy a house like I did in my shitty one bedroom I used to live in, you know, that was tiny, and I was doing bookings and living out of it with 3 cats. And back then, to me, like going from a caravan to that was insane. So I wasn't fucking complaining, but looking back on it now, yeah, I could well and truly afford to be somewhere so much nicer, but I chose to sacrifice and stay there because I wanted to have enough money to buy my house. You need to look at your expenses, even things that you think are necessary, like rent or like food. Are you actually budgeting, or are you just willy-nilly spending money? Because if you want to actually set yourself up, you need to budget, you need to become financially literate. Now, majority of my industry friends, industry peers are not in debt. At least, you know, that I have these conversations with, but I do know that that is really common to be in debt. Things like credit cards, things like student loans, things like car debt. And again, you need to be paying these things off. You need to be setting yourself up, because you're not going to be able to do this job until you're 65 or 70. You're not, okay? You have to make sacrifices. You have to make sacrifices to set yourself up long term. Damn, like, what was it, a year ago, I had industry peers saying that I was lying about how much money that I made, or lying about being successful at all because I didn't have flashy things to show for my success. I make what I make, and that doesn't make any difference that I'm not going out and buying a new designer bag every single week. That doesn't show that I'm more successful. That just shows that I'm stupid with my money. I'm so grateful that my time in the sex work industry, I have been so smart with my money and saved so much. You know, I'm in a position now where I bought a house about a year ago, maybe like 8 months ago at the time of filming this. I bought a house. I own the majority of the house. I do not own it in full because that's not a smart financial investment. There are ways to leverage money that's positive. You can go on a deep dive onto like, you know, finances and investing and things like that. And I'm not a financial advisor, but I do own the majority of that house. I've got a deposit saved to buy a second house. I own shares, I own crypto, I own gold, I own all sorts of things I have put my money into because I want to set myself up for my future. My one thing in this industry is to have enough to be able to retire and never work again. And I will keep working until I get there. But for a lot of people, sex work is a lifestyle and not a business. And if you want it to be a lifestyle, if you don't care about what happens when you're older, that's fine too. You know, you do what you want to do. I'm not forcing you, but it shouldn't be a lifestyle. It shouldn't just be I made $5,000, I'm going to spend $5,000. Look at my luxurious lifestyle. I'm so fancy, trying to impress everyone else. If you want to be smart about it, you need to be saving and investing. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on the golden handcuffs of being a sex worker. And I don't know how many of my industry friends are over 30 now and don't have $1 in their superannuation because they've never saved $1 while doing this job, and they've been successful in doing it, haven't saved anything. So please, if you are a worker who is in a position to maybe start making positive changes, please let this video be a little bit of a wake-up call to you. If you are somebody coming into the industry, brand new, fresh meat as we call you, into the industry, please consider this. Please be smart with your money. You don't want to do this job to leave with nothing. You don't want that, and I don't want that for you either. I want everyone to be in the position that I am now. I want everyone to be so financially secure that they don't have to worry about money, but you can't get there if you're being silly with it. So yes, anyway, I hope this has been a wake-up call to somebody, and yeah, you can leave angry comments below. That's perfectly fine. I'm well aware that this video is probably not going to go down too well within the community, but it needs to be said, and I don't regret posting it. So yeah.